Rachel, I thought we'd make a nice little bag.
That's very nice.
It's just a simple drawstring bag, but all it is a circle.
Oh, it's a great idea.
It's lovely, isn't it? So it's really easy to sew together, and on the outside we've put this lovely feather motif embroidery, and I've tied that together inside with a nice bit of feather print lining there.
Works really well together. Yeah.
So I've hooped up some fabric for us to use and popped some stabiliser underneath as well.
Yeah, just some stitch and tear.
Yeah, nice general stabiliser, and I've drawn a circle on there just to act as a guide.
Yep, and we can position our embroidery within that circle, so we know that's where it's going to be used. Let me put the hoop on. So we've got a design on here that we've actually drawn out ourselves on this machine, but you can use any built-in design. It doesn't have to be even a quilting design. You can use whatever design you want to.
Or you could use some decorative stitches or free motion embroidery.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea. And we've got some variegated thread in there as well, so it gives that the change of colour within the design.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'll start that one going.
So that embroidery is all finished now, Rachel. I think it looks gorgeous.
It does.
What I've also done is where we had our circle, I've just double checked that that motif is centralised in the circle. And you can see I've got some markings there where I've checked the circles even all the way around. I'm just putting some more interfacing underneath. We've taken the interfacing off from the embroidery. But we're going to do buttonholes now, and it's always a good idea, isn't it? To
with a single layer of fabric as well. And this kind of fabric can be a little bit tricky sometimes to sew on, so it's a good idea just for that extra stability to be there.
So I'm just making my buttonhole markings, and I've made them 1.5 inches in from the outside, and then 1/2 inch apart, so there's a little gap, and this is where our drawstring will come out.
Right.
And I think we want them about 1/2 inch long.
Yeah.
So you're going to do those.
Lovely. So what I've got here is an automatic one-step buttonhole foot. So it makes buttonholes really easy, to be honest. I mean, you can do buttonholes by hand or with machines that don't have this kind of foot, but it just makes it a lot easier. So this slides back like that, you pop your button into there. We've got a nice little tiny button there, and that will give you the right size buttonhole for the button you're going to sew on onto the fabric. So it foolproof, really. Yeah, exactly. So I'll attach that onto there.
Of course, we're not using a button in this project, but we're using that button as a guide.
Exactly.
So that we can get a nice size buttonhole.
Okay, and I just need to bring my lever down, which is there. So the markings that you've drawn on the fabric, I can use those with the foot. There's markings on the foot itself. So I can just look through the little window there, make sure I can see the marks and make sure they're nicely lined up with the markings on the foot. Okay.
So you're going to get a perfect buttonhole every time this way,
exactly, yeah, that's it. Okay, and then I can start sewing. Got my foot pedal plugged in because you can use this machine without, you see, so remember that. And there we go.
Wow, that's really neat.
Okay, so it does an undersew first, it makes the buttonhole nice and secure, and then it does a little zigzag satin stitch over the top. And the nice thing with this foot as well is that you're getting exactly the same buttonhole for the second time.
I think that's really important when you're trying to duplicate.
Yes.
And I know people, you know, especially if you're sewing a blouse or a shirt, you want it to look uniform all the way through, don't you?
Definitely. Because that's the one thing people see, really, isn't it? So I'll just cut that thread off there. Okay, so that's my buttonhole sewn. And we just need to rip open the hole, using a seam ripper.
Yes.
Good idea to put a pin over the top so you don't go too far and then ruin the whole buttonhole.
I know.
And then I'll just do the second one here as well. So we've got matching buttonholes either side.
So you finished that second buttonhole now, Rachel. What I need to do is bring in the lining. I've also pre-cut the circle, trimmed away all that excess that we had from earlier, and I'm placing the lining right sides together with that embroidery.
Lovely.
So just make sure it's in line all the way around. They should match because they're the same size. And I'm going to put just a few pins in here, no buttons involved, just so that you can go around that outer
so all the way around, and I'm going to leave a gap so we can turn it inside out again. Yeah. So the seam allowance, half an inch?
Half an inch would be great, I think.
Okay,
yes.
and what I'm going to do, which side was the buttonholes on?
I think.
Where were they? There we go, yep. So I'm going to start at the opposite side, so we're not showing off that that end point kind of thing. Where
because then when we close that turning gap up, it won't be so visible on the front.
Exactly, yeah.
Lovely.
Okay, so half an inch seam, and away we go. And just a normal stitch length on this one. And take it nice and steady as well, because we are going around a curve, so... And again, use as many pins as you like. I mean, we've only put a couple in, but if you need a few more to help, then obviously do that. Just take it nice and steady, using the speed control if you have that feature on your machine. So I'm just sewing the lines for the channel that we're going to feed the cord through for the drawstring. And I used the buttonholes, the top and the bottom of the buttonhole, to line up where I needed to sew. So I've sewn around the edge of the circle, and you've gone around with pinking shears just to trim the excess seam allowance off, just so we get a nice crisp finish on the edge of this.
I've taken it down to about half the original size, so about 1/4 of an inch, and I've not done that with the opening, just to keep that extra fabric there, because you put quite a lot of tension on that gap.
Yeah, that's it.
So I'm going to start turning it through.
Yeah, pinking shears are great as well, because it's fabric that's very prone to fraying, isn't it? So it stops it from fraying even more inside the bag.
Yeah. Right, so that's that one turned out.
And you've got a nice little tip, haven't you, of how to help with
yes.
the turning out.
Palette knife.
Very good.
Fantastic idea, because you can get chopsticks for poking out your corners, but of course we've got a curved edge.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to bring that palette knife in and run it round to get the seam right on the brim.
Oh, it's a nice effect actually, isn't it? So.
And you can take it over to the ironing board so that as you're pressing, you can see that I've got a much neater finish already. So we're going to press that one now, and then you're going to top stitch around the outside to close that gap. Lovely. So you've finished those 2 channels now, Rachel, so you've stitched 2 lines all the way around, and I've fed in some really nice satin cord. I just used a safety pin, pushed it round through the channel, nice and easy, and finished those off with a bead. And I think that looks really nice there.
Really effective, really nice with the beads on the end as well.
Yeah.
Finishes it off.
A nice touch.